All right, you guys, I am out here to talk to you about our next rule of composition that we're going to learn about. Last time we learned about getting in close, and today we're going to learn about that you don't always have to get in as close as possible. Sometimes we want to include some of what's around our subject, and we want to figure out, well, how do we make that look good? And we do that by using what's called the rule of thirds. And the rule of thirds basically means that we don't ever put our subject right smack dab in the middle of the frame. I can show you, I can demo this for you super easy right now. This is the center of the frame. My eyes, my nose, my mouth, they're all going right through the middle of the frame, and it just looks really boring and dumb. This right here is the rule of thirds. You can see the center of my face. Look at that, I got the sun right behind me. Sorry, it was so bright when I was facing the other way that it was blinding me, so I flipped around and did some photography tricks to make it look good. Anyways, this is the rule of thirds. You can see the center of my face, and my eyes are right on that top left-hand cross point, and my nose and mouth are almost on the bottom left-hand cross point. Basically, I've taken the most important parts of the photo and I've put them out of the middle of the frame. And that's basically the rule of thirds, guys. It's don't put your subject right smack dab in the middle. There are some rules and tips and tricks that will help you, and I'm gonna tell you those right now. All right, let's talk about this shot right here. Like I said, last week we talked about getting in close, but it doesn't always make sense. If I'm trying to take a picture of this flower right here, it doesn't make sense for me to like try to get in that close, because everything that's going on around the flower is also like an important part of the photograph, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna back off a little bit. And in this case, I think having the flower right there on that top left rule of thirds point looks really good. So I'm gonna hold that still. I'm gonna tap on it to make sure I'm focused on it. I'm gonna go ahead and take that shot. And I like the looks of that right there. Let's try it over here on this rule of thirds line. I don't like that one as much because now I'm starting to see the background and the rocks on the ground down in there. And so I like hiding those by putting it over here. What about this one down here? That's not bad, but I like these supporting flowers. I want those to be in there too. And then down here, same problem. So I think the top left point is gonna be our best spot for the rule of thirds here. And that's a little bright, so I'm gonna just click and drag to darken it down just a little bit. And there you go. So as far as just basic subjects, there's no real rule as far as which corner, which rule of thirds point is the best one. You just kind of got to decide which one is going to work best for the shot you're trying to take. However, there are other cases where there are rules, and I'll show those to you right now. The next tip for the rule of thirds has to do with what direction your subject is facing or moving in. And what I mean by that, if I'm looking this way, I want to make sure that I put myself on this rule of thirds line so that I give myself room to look into. You can see this looks quite a bit better than this. Right now I'm just staring right at the edge of the frame and it just doesn't look right, and I'm not giving myself any space. So anytime you have a subject that's looking a direction, always give them room to be looking into when you're setting up your rule of thirds spot. So since I'm looking to my left, I'm gonna put me on the right hand rule of thirds line. Same thing if I was like running or jogging or moving or skiing or biking or anything where I'm moving. If I'm moving this way, I'm gonna put myself on this rule of thirds grid over here so that I have lots of room to look into and run into, versus if I'm moving this way and I put myself on this rule of thirds line, now I've compressed, I don't have a lot of space and I don't give myself room to look into, and it just doesn't look very good. All right, the last tip I'm gonna give you for the rule of thirds has to do with horizon lines. So you can see I've got a sunset here, and I could put the horizon line either on that rule of thirds line or this rule of thirds line. The rule I use to decide which is gonna look better is I decide what's more interesting, the sky or the foreground. If the sky is more interesting, I'm gonna put the horizon line on that bottom rule of thirds line just like this. And then look at where I'm putting the sun too, right on that bottom right rule of thirds cross. If the ground is more interesting than the sky, I might use this rule of thirds line down here. In this case, the sky is way more interesting than the ground, so I'm gonna put it right there. I'm gonna darken this photo up. I'm gonna tap and drag here in Lightroom to darken that just a little bit. I like that a lot. Let's take that photo right there, putting that sun right on the rule of thirds cross to get that cool look. I like the sky way better than the ground in this one, so that's why I'm using that bottom rule of thirds line. All right, guys, there you go. There are Mr. Johnson's tips for using the rule of thirds successfully. First one is experiment with the four corners with whatever you're shooting. Decide which one is going to work best for the subject you're shooting. The second one is if your subject is looking a certain direction or moving a certain direction, put them on the rule of thirds point that gives them room to look into, like this. And the third one had to do with horizon lines when we're taking pictures of landscapes and things like that. If the sky is more interesting than the ground, we include more of the sky. If the ground's more interesting than the sky, we include more of the ground. And that's how we know which rule of thirds box to use for that situation. And that's pretty much it. So go out and experiment with this, have fun. I got an assignment coming up that's gonna help you with this one, and I hope you enjoy it.